What is up, everybody? It is Sunday night, Easter Day. Happy Easter, by the way. And yes, things are running a little bit different tonight on the TXR Podcast. The amazing Invader had to have the night off, and I was put in control of the show. So hopefully it's not like the inmates are running the asylum right now without Invader. But without further ado, I am Centurion 1307, and here is Downer.
Mr. Centuria, great intro, by the way, buddy. How you doing?
Not too bad, man. What you been playing?
Oh, I just passed the Resident Evil. I did a pretty good job. 16 deaths. It took me about 5.5 hours to beat, and I had a chance to beat Ori over the last couple of days. So I got some gaming in, man. But ready to go.
Right on. I've been kind of plugging away at Mafia 3 and Journey to the Savage Planet, and yeah, getting into a subject later tonight. They got an expansion coming out for that, and that's actually pretty cool.
Yep. Happy Passover to Mr. Mike. I appreciate him coming on the show.
Thank you, guys.
Happy Easter to you two clowns, Mr. Shockley and Centurion.
Yeah, happy Easter, guys.
Yes, the delay of the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is we took a second to reach out to another member of the gaming community, Mike Mullis from the NLG Podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks. I mean, this is literally within like 5 minutes. Like,
For real.
yeah,
Yep.
Jeremy, he DM'd me and said, "Hey, you want to be on TXR tonight?" So, of course, I had to ask my wife though, but she's going to bed early, so I'm good. I'm good.
That sounds good. Actually, going to bed. I'm pretty tired.
I know. But hey,
I've kind of been lazy all day, and I think it was like the 7 deviled eggs I ate, but.
I do it every time.
Oh my gosh! And I have really bad gas. So if you guys hear some weird stuff through the no.
Oh my goodness!
And finally, we got Shockley still at home working remotely and playing Nintendo.
Is he Final Fantasy the remake or the?
Oh yeah, I've just downloaded the remake last night.
Nice.
Oh wow! Now I'm actually
So that's pretty cool. I think it got past the first intro that's iconic with Final Fantasy, so that's been pretty cool. The combat's really sick.
Does it deserve all the hype? Because that game is I was on BestBuy.com this morning and it was sold out. Like every version of that game is sold out right now, at least on BestBuy.com.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That it's kind of has that stagger system, which I think was in either Final Fantasy 13 or 15. But this, I guess, from what I'm hearing, is a lot more in depth. It's not as simple.
Yeah, the stagger was it was first on the online game.
Oh, okay.
To my recollection. So I tried to buy the collector's edition, and within like 5 minutes, those fucking things were sold out. Yeah, you can't touch them at all.
Yeah, I kind of stopped playing Animal Crossing because it's just I get discouraged from playing it because I see everybody that time travels and cheats in the game.
Right.
So it's wait, they have this whole city and I can't even get a shovel yet. I'm I don't even. I'm still trying to get plans for that. I'm
not to sound naive, but me and my
often.
wife actually watched some stuff on Animal Crossing because of all you guys talking about it. What exactly is this time traveling thing?
You just go. You have to go out of the game and turn off the game or whatever, and then go to your system clock and say, "Hey, it's tomorrow." Or so
you're manipulating the actual clock in the console.
Yeah, the game is meant to be played as real life. Whatever time it is, whatever day it is in real life, that's the day. So it's supposed to over time, you're supposed to accumulate things like that. But they're just jumping. Oh no, it's been years. I've been playing Animal Crossing for years, and now I have this whole. It's just I don't even want to play it because I don't want to play it that way. But it's
Jean-Claude Van Damme made a movie like this. That's how you get in trouble.
Yep, exactly.
Oh,
but
man.
That's been around since the old GameCube.
Yeah, since
days.
GameCube.
Oh my god. Yeah.
But you didn't see other people's stuff as much. Now it's you see it all over Twitter. It's just well, fuck, what the fuck am I doing?
And Mike, just to let you know, Centurion has no idea who Tom Nook is.
Tom Nook is a salesman in Animal Crossing.
You
don't get the
we had to tell you, Centurion.
No, I had to Google it. You didn't tell me nothing.
Dude, at least you were honest about it.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, dude, he was like, "Who's Tom Nook?" I'm like, "I don't know who Tom Nook is. Should I be trusting this guy? He's got a weird name."
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's actually interesting that Shockley brought up Final Fantasy VII, which is only currently a PlayStation exclusive. Speaking of PlayStation, did anybody see the reveal of the DualSense controller?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
I seen the uproar on Xbox and ponies fighting it out one-on-one.
It grew a Xbox chromosome. Yeah.
Oh, there's definitely been some uproar. It's actually kind of interesting because there's actually articles like one on CCN. The PS5 controller love fest must be insanely embarrassing for Xbox. But meanwhile, we got on Tech Radar over here, the other opposite of the fence here. The DualSense PS5 controller packed with fancy features, but they won't get used.
I saw that.
So it's like all over the place.
You know what? First party is going to go hard on using those features, but as far as third party, no, it's going to be non-existent. You know, I really like how the look of the design. It's a slight change to the original DualShock 4. I think even more impressive are its features. Even though it didn't speak of all of them, back when Sony introduced the DualShock 4, the speaker and the controller is what really impressed me, even though it was kind of a gimmick. It provided, at least for myself anyways, a unique experience. And, if you guys ever played Alien Isolation, for example, instead of the scanner beeping through the TV, it beeped through the controller. So now imagine that built-in microphone, is just beeping all, and it kind of creates another sense of tension. So I think along with that, with the 3D audio tech that Sony has built into the PlayStation 5, I also think the built-in microphone array is a brilliant idea for quick chats. It's kind of like a walkie-talkie type feature. You see all the memes going around social media of Xbox fan poking at fun of the design itself, and vice versa. Everybody says the PS5 controller, PS4 controller, DualShock is superior than the Xbox controller, but it's just like it goes for a wildfire on social media, and I think it's funny.
So now that they've got their own built-in microphone, is it going to be like when cell phones actually put speakerphones in them? Everybody was like walking around like forever on speakerphone.
Oh,
so now we're just going to see everybody walking around holding converstions on their.
It's going to be
controller.
like the Kinect. Like you would know the people that would use the Kinect as their mic.
Yep.
So you're just going to know. You're like, oh, are you using your controller for your mic? Yeah. Can you switch that? That's what it's going to be.
I don't think it's going to be quite like that, but I think you'd have to push a button for it to actually activate and for you to speak into the mic.
It tells me a mic
They
is
have
not
to
coming
do
in
that.
the box.
Yeah.
No, yeah, they're not going to do, because it's going to be compatible with all of your standard stuff. I mean, you talked about the speaker. I remember another game that really used that well, and it was Gravity Rush 2.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
When you're kind of going down into the mining area, and you hear your
I know
the conversations from up above, and it's coming through the speaker instead of coming through. Like stuff like that was really cool. The thing is that the controller itself looks great.
I like the design. Absolutely.
Now, one thing that I did not see, so they moved the light bar, right? So they moved the light bar from the back of the controller to the sides.
Well, people complained of the light getting, shining on your TV and stuff like that. So
I know.
Yeah.
Mike, but they did not answer a question of whether you could turn that light off.
Oh, thank God somebody brought that up. Dude, that thing is a power drain.
Yeah, I think you can turn it off on the PS4.
No, you cannot. I dimmed mine.
Oh,
yeah, you can dim it, but you can't turn it off.
You can turn off the speaker, I think, on the PS4.
Yes, the speaker.
You can do that through the options. So
Yeah.
some games that utilize the feature, you could turn off the speaker in the options, and that's how it works.
And yes, Born Distracted, you damn right I'm drinking tonight. It's not my podcast.
Nice. Considering the world is going to end, I'd fucking drink too, but even though I don't drink.
I got me a Guinness blonde. They got a good blonde.
Nice. I am a Yingling guy, and I like the light just because of the taste. The regular Yingling is just a little heavier, so the light is kind of a perfect taste.
And I think it goes well with, Invader always says, grab a cold one and, start listening. So there you go, Mike.
Yeah.
All you.
Oh, yeah. You definitely can't do the TXR podcast without a cold one in your hand, alcoholic or non-alcoholic.
There we go.
Centurion, I got to hear your thoughts on that controller because I seen you dabble a little bit back and forth with a couple of Sony guys.
Oh, God. Here we go. Okay, so for starters, we all know I'm a multi-console owner. I prefer Xbox just because all my friends are there. The environment is more active for me. On PlayStation, I feel like I am alone, but I guess that's because I never made friends there. Mm-hmm. But anyways, onto the controller. When you guys were talking about the speaker, one thing I do like about the controller is the actual speaker. Playing Days Gone, the audio logs would come through the speaker. I remember one of my first I totally forgot there was a speaker in the controller until I bought Horizon Zero Dawn, and you go and click on the scanner and the thing puts off this tone when you click on the scanner. And I remember the first time I did that because I came home, it was late at night. I put the game in and I was playing it, and my wife was sleeping next to me, and that thing went off, and she was like, "What the hell was that?"
Did you play Death Stranding?
Death Stranding? No, I have not.
A lot of people turned it off because of the crying.
Yeah, the baby.
Oh, really?
That would freak me out.
Yeah, I heard like when the kids started screaming, you had to like rock the controller, and all of a sudden became a baby.
Yep.
Okay,
yep,
absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely something I would probably more than likely turn off myself, purely because I'm not just going to start frantically trying to rock a baby in the middle of the night. Or I don't know.
You know what I did is I shook the controller as hard as I could, like I was strangling the baby. I'm just kidding.
All of a sudden, I got to put a disclaimer on the show that says views do not represent the views and opinions of the TXR.
Right. Yeah. So my co-host John Technofabulous says in MLB The Show, it makes really good use of that controller speaker as well.
See, now that's one thing I want to say is the controller speaker is awesome, but that touchpad, I'm going to be really I'm a little confused on it. I thought it would be a little bit more utilized than what it is, and most of the stuff
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say the pad is just. It's almost like the most use out of what I've seen out of it anyways was like in Days Gone, like you had to tilt it multi directions to kind of move through the menus, but I haven't really seen that actual touchpad used very heavily in very many games.
No. It's used for like Go ahead, Mike. I was going to say
I've seen it in a couple games too. You can it's primarily used as for touchscreen or mouse kind of games where you're
rub
searching
dirt off of something or
yeah, exactly. So
I've seen it for bringing up maps. Now the one place where I have seen it used pretty decently is in VR games. So a couple of games where you might need to flick something at ahead of you, you could use the controller to kind of flick something from. I've seen it for that. But otherwise, it's just you click it to bring up a map. That's the most
that's if you don't have those sticks, or I don't know what kind of controller there are. It is with the little light at the end when
the move.
The move. There you go.
Now let's bring up the number one feature that's being touted about this controller: haptic feedback. Do you think that's something groundbreaking, or is that something that's kind of like have they should have already done this?
I think they should have already done it. I know they made some design changes to the PlayStation 5 controller. I think it's a little bit larger than the DualShock 4. But yeah, I mean, it's a big difference because when you're driving, like, let's say you're driving through like mud in a racing game, it feels, I'm not saying it feels like driving through mud, but it gives that feeling like you're actually driving through mud. So there's different things you can do with the game, as far as haptic feedback. Absolutely.
It's not the first to have it, though.
No.
The Elite controller, I believe, had it.
The original?
I'm looking.
I think they're like they have impulse like triggers, so it's not as.
So here's what and I can't tell if this is the. I think this might be the first one because one of the button mapping examples they use is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yeah.
So under haptic feedback, it says features impulse triggers and rumble motors. Motor control can be adjusted in app, and it says in supported games. So what the difference between that and what Sony was trying to do with haptic feedback with the DualSense is also put it in the face buttons. Now, how that's going to work, I'm not sure. There's definitely adaptive triggers, but I remember, and I don't know if that's still in the design, but they wanted to try to do that with the face buttons as well.
And I think for their first party lineup, I think that's a great experience. However, you're not going to see it in the pro gaming circuit or some of these haptic feedback.
The Switch has it, and it's like never used.
Right.
Yeah, except 1-2 switch, and that's it.
I'm liking all the comparisons that are floating around, how they're comparing the PS5 controller to the Xbox One controller that has the share button on it. And, I will say the Xbox One controller, they could have went and kind of reinvented the wheel and made a more glorious looking controller. But I feel like Microsoft had their kind of sets more centered on the console itself and not worried about trying to create like a new kind of controller for their console. I don't know. I find each controller just kind of, to me, a controller is a controller at the end of the day. If you really want a premium experience, we all can look at, we have the Elite controller on the Microsoft side, and we have the Astro controller on the PlayStation side. And I've even thought about buying one of those for my PlayStation just because it looks like a more comfortable controller.
And you know what? I do like the speaker functionality, though. That's the one selling point for me. And it's probably a selling point for Sony as well. Because when you're playing a game and you hear a different kind of sound coming through those controllers, it creates a different experience. So, it's for Sony's benefit.
All righty. So, speaking of new controllers, Xbox had some new things to show us in their new episode of oh my god, I can never remember that show.
Inside
Xbox. There we go. See, first show
That's
ever hosting.
Nobody watches this. Why?
I will definitely say.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have skipped a lot on Inside Xboxes, but this whole situation with everybody doing stuff from home remotely and having a lot more time on our hands and not able to go outside and do stuff that's more entertaining, it was just like I have to tune in. And I was also interested in Grounded. I don't care what nobody says. I understand that it's not exactly the game everybody was asking for, but it looks like something that me and my wife can play together, and we are totally interested in this game.
And you know what? I'm with you because the Centurion, the Grounded game looks great, and it's going to be great. Obsidian makes it. Again, they're one of these publishers and developers that really haven't made a bad game, in my opinion. But yeah. So
well, and it's something different for Obsidian too. I mean, I'm trying to remember what they've done like this. I mean, their big title is Wasteland.
Yeah.
They're known for that style of game. So Grounded is something really different, and it's what they need.
Yeah, they've never created something like Grounded ever. So you're absolutely right.
And I think it's great because it speaks to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let's be honest. Has there really been a game like Grounded ever done before? I mean, there's concepts that you can match it to, but it actually almost in the scale, kind of in itself, looks unique.
every game, give or take, has something in it that's been done before. But I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you to a certain extent. But yeah, I mean, as far as the game concept, yeah, it's never been done before.
No, it is something new, and then that's isn't that what everybody's been clamoring for? Is something new, something different, something we need a new IP. You hear this all the time. Xbox needs new IPs.
Mhm.
Well, here you are.
Yeah.
Here's it. Now, granted, it's not a bro shooter, so I don't know. Well, so look, this is the thing that since we're talking to a primarily Xbox demographic here, and I'm one of those guys who not grew up, but I spent the last 20 years playing on an Xbox too.
Yeah.
This crazy idea that in one hand we need new IPs, but in the other hand, well, it can't be something like Grounded that's this kiddie game. You can't have it both ways, guys. This looks like a great game to me, and something that you're right. It's something that you could play with your kids, but you might just have a fun time on it just on your own.
I'm hoping. I know it's not going to be as fast as fluid as say Fortnite with the building, concept behind it, but at least make it accessible to where it's fast enough to where you can do fun things and you can build fun things and have a good time doing it. But if that building's gonna be a chore, we're gonna have some problems. So.
Well, speaking of accessibility, Obsidian said in that thing on the show that they are making the game not only accessible in multiplayer, but they also want the game to be accessible for those who choose to play the game solo.
Oh, nice.
Right.
So
I was looking at some of the screenshots, and I think that what they describe is base building and crafting. So that there's going to be a little bit of complexity to it. I don't think it's just going to be like, you mentioned Fortnite, which is a different game, but I mean, it's not like you're going to be running along and can just build yourself a hotel in 5 seconds. I think this almost seems like, here's where Obsidian brings in some of the Obsidian that RTS. It's almost like this is going to be a mix of a less complex RTS than what you're used to with, say, a Wasteland, combined with some sort of
strategy,
right?
Sure.
And open world, open world gameplay. I am of all the things I saw, it's a game that I'm very interested in, no doubt.
You could see the complexity in just how, like, if you go to that one part of Inside Xbox where they talk about you want to play the game armored up and just go fight everything, do it. If you want to play stealth, do it. But when you see them show those different character designs, the armor is totally different. Obviously, if you play any kind of RPGs, heavy armor is more cumbersome and noisy than light armor. And so if you're going for a stealth tactic, you got to use light armor. And I've kind of, from some of the previews, it looks like they're actually incorporating concepts like that into the game.
Well, because Obsidian's big, it's going to be RPG decked out to the top, to the max. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
Oh, but it also looks like it's probably going to more than likely bleed into your base building as well. You're probably going to have very mediocre base building skills, and as you play the game, you're going to upgrade them, and you'll probably be able to get blueprints and different stuff and be able to build things totally out of your, and at that point, you can make it to where you would have to, your friend is able to make better turrets than you, so you could have it to where you invite them over to your base so your friend can build these turrets onto your base because you haven't got to that point yet.
And that's why I think this game's going to be a hit. If they can make it accessible enough for you to build, play, and have a good time while there's deep RPG elements in the game, it's definitely going to be a hit. So
most definitely.
But as far as Inside Xbox, I know we got off topic a little bit, but as far as that goes, I still feel like they're missing the mark with these with the live events because I think every single Xbox fan watches these shows hoping something new and exciting is going to happen, and it just doesn't. And I'm one of those guys where I keep watching and I hope it's going to be exciting. But they needed a new refresh, and I hope it's coming, but I doubt it. I do like how The Last Campfire looks. The creators of No Man's Sky, that looks like an interesting game. It's kind of a Journey-esque type game. But yeah, overall, I think Grounded looks like it's going to be a great and fantastic title.
Now, do you think it's a little... Sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to ask, do you think it's a little... Right. I understand in the past, Microsoft has not been known for showing us what we want to see and giving us the content we're kind of clamoring for. But at the same time, can you hold them to that standard right now of you got to give us, great things, even though if you really look at this inside Xbox, everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah, because with the exception of Ori 2, what has Xbox done? If you think about it, I think Game Pass, right now there's currently no reason to get people excited over Game Pass other than its value. Mike, what games on there you think sell Game Pass?
So for starters, I'm gonna go with Yakuza, which is a game that has been held away from Xbox gamers for a very long time.
And I do think it does attract some of the hardcore. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
But I mean, so if you go back to and you look at the announcements they made on Inside Xbox this past one, and by the way, just as an aside, on our show last Thursday, we had Ricari Austin on, who was part of that show, and I will tell you without getting into details, he shares some of that concern, as do I, about the Inside Xbox as a whole. And especially on the day when they knew Sony was going to talk about their controller, because the Xbox Twitter feed kind of pre-responded to them.
Yeah,
they had a chance to say something and didn't. Now you got to remember that the Ori is in Game Pass, right?
That's what I said, with the exception of Ori.
Well, Journey to the Savage Planet is now there, which I understand is a fantastic game.
I have yet to meet somebody that has not played that game and like, this game is trash. There's people who are like, that game doesn't look like it's for me, and the minute they play it, they're like, this game's awesome.
It's an awesome game.
I'm hearing that. NBA 2K is in there. Near Automata is in there, which I gotta get rolling on, because I missed it on the PlayStation. And and here's the thing. I'm like one of the biggest advocates for Game Pass. I've always been, for two reasons. Number one, I have a wife and 3 kids. My disposable income is about like this. So 9 times out of 10, I'm going to hold off on a game because I think it's going to come to Game Pass. So I held off on, for example, Ace Combat 7, and it's in Game Pass. It's just stuff like that. Eventually, Doom Eternal is going to be in there. Why? Because Bethesda and Microsoft are
Doom's already in there. Fallout's in there.
And Doom's already in there.
I want to kind of add on to what you said. How about this for everybody to kind of like, fester in their brain? I bought Journey to the Savage Planet last week.
I did too.
So
I didn't buy it last week. I bought it day one.
Oh, okay. So I bought it last week on sale, and this is going to be awesome. Now it's in Game Pass. Am I mad? No, because at the same time, in the back of my mind, that game is now part of my digital library, and it's always going to be there, whether it's in Game Pass or not.
Yep.
My Friend Pedro is in there, which I understand is a fantastic game. What else is in there? I just finished playing Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Oh, that's a fantastic game.
Oh my God, that really is.
Great game.
So, Outer Wilds, Outer Worlds, don't forget too,
Plague's Tale.
Plague's Tale, Bleeding Edge. There is a ton of games in Game Pass if you really
All right, Centurion, erase what I said.
No, no. Actually, I want to add on to that because here's the other thing that, like, you know, if you want to think about it, right now we're in the middle of a crisis where people aren't exactly free to go out of their homes and go freely shopping carefree. And a lot of these places that actually sell physical media like games and movies, you can't even go into these stores. You got to know what you want and they'll hand it to you at the door. So let's look at a consumer that's been stuck at home. They're just now getting back into gaming and they're finding out about
money. Yeah,
exactly. Or they might have money in the bank, but they don't want to use it because of all the uncertainties that are going on with our economy. And now they're finding out they can get this Game Pass subscription for $1 if they're new, or if you're not new to it, you can get it for $15 a month, which is still a steal. And you'll have access to this entire library of games that do change. It updates, new things come in and out. And so therefore you don't have to worry about leaving your home to go try new games. And I understand you can buy these games digitally, but unless it's like the Xbox Spring Sale, some of these games, you know, are a full $60.
That's 100% right. Now, yep.
Yeah.
How about you, Shockley? You're being quiet.
No, I think
it's too busy playing Final Fantasy.
No, well, that's why I've been trying to in between right there. No, but I think it's a great deal. Like I think people were saying, like with kind of like games like Grounded, they're like, well, see, this is the problem with Game Pass. It's just destroying their quality. I'm like, a lot of those were pre-development, already in, you know, about to come out. Would have came out. Yeah. Grounded would have came out to multiplat. And then you look at Gears, and that's one of their main sticking points because of some of the DLC. And I'm like, the last game charged you for map packs. All of the Gears have charged you for map packs, splintering the player-based things that actually affect gameplay because you can't play with your friends with the same maps. And also they took out the loot boxes, which would get you to spend more money on getting some of the other stuff faster. I know I did on the Gears 4.
I haven't played Gears 5 in a while. They took out the loot boxes, huh?
There never was loot boxes in Gears 5. They took them out from Gears 4. Or they were in Gears 4, but they took them out in Gears 5. The only one that launched in Game Pass day one. So I'm like, I don't really see the, what do you call it? The comparison or the correlation between Game Pass really affecting games negatively. Because I don't know.
Well, they also don't stay in there forever either. Don't forget that.
Right. Everything is
first party.
Out.
I don't think.
Yeah, first party
will be there. Right. First party will be there probably forever. But third party game. I mean, Shenmue came in and out.
Yeah, it's usually like a year. It looks like for most.
Yeah, I forgot what was coming out at the end of this month. But I mean, you've got to play them while you can.
Well, you also like Square Enix last year, I believe it was at the XO event. They revealed a Square Enix that a majority of the Final Fantasy games are going to end up in Game Pass going forward sometime this year. So they're actually getting a massive amount of content, and they've also got Phantasy Star Online. They've launched the perks program, so now you're actually getting DLC perks for some of these games. Not to mention, you're actually getting full-blown DLC. We talked about
speaking of Phantasy Star, it's doing great for the Xbox, and I think Sega and they're really happy with the product they put out.
Is it only on Xbox still, or is it on PC too?
It's on PC, but I think So,
but now, so going back onto what Downer said earlier, you're definitely saying that they need to kind of step it up on inside Xbox and Xbox in general.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I just think as far as they're missing the mark when it comes to like big announcements, and they don't have to release a lot of information. It's a give or take kind of thing where they can say something about some new news about Series X and get some attention that way. And that's what I'm talking about. It's all about building the brand. And as you can see, Xbox up to this point, especially this year, has done a good job releasing stuff on a weekly basis. I think Phil recognizes that. And I think you see him releasing stuff on a weekly basis to kind of get the base excited. And I think Inside Xbox needs to follow the same suit. You know what I mean? So That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, now it's interesting. We're saying that they need to step it up with Inside Xbox and also starting to show some more games. Credible industry insider Shinobi 602 on Reset Era recently came out and made a comment saying, "It's not my place to give details, and my username would be plastered on sites come morning if I did, LOLs. So I won't, but you won't have to wait too much longer, really. I'm incredibly excited at what's coming from Xbox. Gorgeous fantasy worlds, reboots, big sci-fi, should be a lot of fun."
You know, I don't think he really released any new rumor information.
Right.
I think he was a little vague on his
I know,
comment.
right?
And
Very
I
well.
think-
Are you a lawyer? No.
but we all knew there was a strong possibility that we were going to get games like Fable and probably MechAssault. And, you know, and there's a couple others that we kind of knew already, but, you know, we'll wait and see.
Yeah,
What
we know who's
Yeah.
making Fable.
Yep. And no, actually we don't. I have some theories about that.
okay.
but-
That's a big debate. Do you think
Yeah.
Fable is the worst kept secret in gaming? Is Playground Games secretly working on something completely out of their wheelhouse? I mean, the Fable franchise has so much myth and rumor surrounding it.
Yep. But what I like to see Xbox rebooting is a new Splinter Cell franchise. And I know it's not Xbox, but it's where it first started as far as on the console space. And if you guys remember, PlayStation had Metal Gear, and at the time, Xbox had Splinter Cell, and it eventually came to Sony's platform, but those
wasn't as good.
Yeah, and those were two heavyweights both going at it at the time, which was Metal Gear and Splinter Cell, both offering a unique experience. So I think if they're going to reach back into the retro portfolio, it needs to be some of these big games that we remember, like MechAssault, like Fable. And I think Fable has always kind of been one of these games where it's, how can I put it? I don't want to say underwhelming, but it didn't live up to expectations. And I think part of that is Peter Molyneux's fault. You know, he was hyping up the game and, this is going to be the greatest RPG. You know, he was one of those guys, and they under-delivered. And I think it was like that through all the entire Fable series. So really, the Fable world hasn't really been touched. So I like to see somebody like, who can take the reins of Fable?
Rare.
Do you guys? Yeah,
Rare.
I think they did a good job with the Fable franchise.
I mean, I think Playground
so.
They've hired a lot of talent from like
and
devs
that's who I think is doing it. But Rare, Rare has that feel and that look about their games. And I know how excited Jeremy was during Inside Xbox when they spotlighted the new Sea of Thieves update. I know he was
God.
But in all seriousness, if any, they are the first one to come to mind if Playground isn't, because the only other really, I guess right now, studio they have where you don't know what they're doing is the Initiative, and I don't see a game from Fable coming out from that studio.
I think they have the talent.
or Obsidian. We don't know what they're working on past the Outer Worlds.
Yeah,
True,
Other than Grounded, that small project.
But I don't know that I see Fable. Like I said, Fable has a look and a mantra and a kind of mystique to it.
they need to get away from that. By the way, the whole British.
See,
they
but
need to get away from it.
the minute they do that, then Xbox fans are going to go, well, this isn't Fable, because
He's right.
Wouldn't you say though, Mike? It kind of needs to be realized again.
I think it can be redone. I think it can be rebooted, but I think it has to have the charm. There was a charm. That's the word I'm looking for. There was a charm to Fable, and to be honest with you, the only thing that ruined Fable for me was some of the mishandled multiplayer. And what happened was for me, I was playing Fable 3, I think it was. And out of nowhere, some joker jumped into my game, gave me like 8 million gold, and then left. And I was like, well, now I could just buy everything I want and just be done with the game. And I ruined the game for me because I was like halfway through and I was like, well, I'm not starting over either. So I just kind of gave it up. And then Fable Legends happened. And I was so excited for Fable Legends, and it got the cut. And to this day, if I stood in front of Phil Spencer, I would tell him you should have seen that through, because I think
you know what happened. I'll tell you a little inside story here, but it was me, Tim Dog, Southbound, and Phil Spencer. We were playing Fable Legends one day, and he asked us specifically, "What do you guys think of this game?" We kind of gave him our opinions on it, but at the time I didn't think it was a great title. But
how deep into the beta were you at that time?
I didn't play it enough. I played Mike, we've been in gaming a long time. We played some game. We played some shit.
Oh yeah,
and we can pick up a game for 5 or 10 minutes and automatically know whether or not that game has what it takes to be successful. Would you agree?
I would.
So
I'm going to caveat that though.
Yeah.
So there was something about the reason that we were. I don't know if you guys have ever heard me talk about betas. But whenever people talk about open betas to me, open beta to me equals demo, like buy my game demo, which is why you see open betas like 3 weeks before a game releases, because they're about to go gold and they just want you to be excited for the game. Fable Legends was different in that they were in alpha stage and they were getting people in while they were building the game. And you could see that they were building a game. You could see that there were places you couldn't go. There were pieces that were the complete pieces missing. And I believe it or not, from that standpoint, I understand what you guys probably were saying at that time, whenever that was. I stuck with it, and a few of us stuck with it. There was a point in the development where it's almost like Lionhead turned something on, or whatever. Their build finally had DX12 or whatever the hell they did. They it's almost like they flipped a switch and the game turned, and it was like twice as smooth. They had opened up all this new area that you were able to buy things, you were able to do some things that you couldn't do before. And all of a sudden, if you got 4 people together, and you could find 4 randos really easily who wanted to play, the game became fun. And all I'm saying is that especially if they were going to make it a free to play game, I know all I would have said was just let them finish it out before destroying the game and then destroying the studio. I mean, they threw the bathwater, the tub out, and then burnt the house to the ground. So, I mean, it was, I don't know. That's one game where I wish they would have finished it, because I think it would have sold some people that might not have been happy with it at the beginning of the development. That's all. It's really.
And I know what you're talking about, flipping the switch, because again, we're part of that entire process. I seen the game aesthetically was great to look at. If you remember, it was good to look at. It played a lot kind of like the old Phantasy Star game online.
That is exactly what I thought it was.
Yeah, but again, it didn't have great level design. The artwork was great, but the level design wasn't there. Some of the enemies were just like, it was just trash. And I think the overall gameplay loop just wasn't fun. I mean, that's what I got from it. And the proof is in the pudding, which is probably why they discontinued that game, because from my standpoint, that game was going to be a train wreck as soon as it released it. It would have been better, yeah, if it was free to play, but at this point, we'll never know.
Yeah, and really that's all I guess that was all my point about it is that they should have, let the chips fall where they may with that. And sometimes that's Microsoft gets a lot of heat for that, and sometimes it's justified. I mean, and in a bubble, Fable Legends is one, but then it wasn't shortly after that Scalebound died. I mean, so what happened was it became a pattern, and Fable Legends maybe on it, maybe you're right. Maybe it would have, died out. I think the Phantasy Star aspect is what drew me to it. But I will also say that even through to the very end, I never had a problem finding people to play. Never.
You know what, Mike? I think the thing that frustrates me the most is you see games like Fable Legends, and Scalebound get canceled, and then they let a game like Crackdown 3 come out, and the shit that Crackdown 3 took, both during the development process and after the release, and you just scratch your head at some of these moves.
Beat that game too.
I mean, that game was also in development hell, and then they saw one of the major developers get bought up.
Yeah, and that created a situation where Microsoft was actually literally allowed to take that company to court because they completely screwed up the development on Crackdown 3.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and what I mean now, they screwed up the development of the online multiplayer, the Wrecking Zone. Yeah, they weren't handling the first part, the single player experience. They were handling the multiplayer experience, and it put them in a bind. And rather than taking them to court, Microsoft found a company that could build that experience in, I think it was like about a year.
Yeah, Ruffian.
Yeah, it looked good when Dustin Legary was playing that demo back in like 20. I think it was like 2016 or something.
I did a couple of streams on that game. It was, I mean, the Wrecking Zone was a fantastic idea. I think where they went wrong was not having party play at the beginning.
And now here's the thing. I actually am on the fence about that because I understand it's a feature that should have been there, but at the time we were dealing with a new kind of online multiplayer involving the cloud, and your ping rate actually affected how the game was played. So it actually wanted to find people that were closer to you versus having somebody on the East Coast and West Coast on the same team reversing each other, because it was just all over the place, I guess. Like it had something to do with latency and ping rates and all this other stuff.
Which is weird because you could play against you could find people across the country. I got hooked up with people that were in Spain and all kinds of, I couldn't talk to them. I don't know. I think by the time they added that, and I don't know if maybe they didn't even add it, but everybody, I mean, let's pour one out for that game.
Oh, dude, every time anybody wants to bash Xbox, it's kind of funny. Crackdown 3 all of a sudden surfaces.
Screw those people.
I was a big I trashed Crackdown through its entire development. You guys weren't around for that, but I don't know if Mike remembers that.
I remember.
It was for a good 3 years. Crackdown. I was just trashing. I would tweet the developer. I would tweet the PR person. I just made it.
See, now you raised the question: how did Crackdown survive all the budget cuts that were occurring as a result of the failed leadership at the beginning of this generation that gave us the Xbox One VCR?
The only thing I can think of was that either number one, Microsoft was too invested in the Crackdown, there was no turning back, or two, something about Crackdown was near and dear to Phil Spencer's heart.
No, and that is no secret.
Yeah,
I think it's a combination.
Combination, but also let's look at the fact that they probably looked at all three of those games or all the other games that got cut during that time, and it probably was the concept of what games do we think we could finish for the least amount of money. And Crackdown was probably one of those games. Now, keep in mind, when they made this decision, it was probably way before that whole incident with the company that got bought out by Epic Games that took all their cloud tech. CloudGen. And so that's where they didn't plan for that. And at that point, when CloudGen got bought out in the Wrecking Zone, in my opinion, maybe they should have just released Crackdown 3 as like a $20-$30 single player experience and given up on the Wrecking Zone and just say, hey, we kind of got screwed over by a buyout and all this other stuff. It was something that just fell apart.
Yeah.
And that was around the time when Phil took over like actual VP, because he didn't have that VP status that Don Matrick and Peter Moore had until like late 2017. That's what,
and that was because Microsoft didn't want to give somebody budget control because of all the issues that happened. You know, they overspending with Platinum Games and Lionhead Studios on the games that were in development, the failed launch of the Xbox One, just all this stuff stacked up against it. So at that point, Microsoft didn't want really anybody in the Xbox division having too much control of any kind of budget.
And I think there's some truth to that, because for 5 years that Phil, took the reins, you've seen not a lot of movement and production from the Xbox, and they kind of like had to rebrand itself in a way to where, hey, maybe Microsoft, we're not in these meetings, obviously, but maybe Microsoft went say, hey, Phil, let's see if you can be profitable and, do certain things with the Xbox brand. And then once you get to a certain point, maybe we can let you take over this. And then maybe that's what happened in 2017 when he actually took over. I think there's some truth to that, because I know, there's a lot of business people and a lot of business moves where you got to prove it first. You got to prove that you can make a brand viable and profitable at the same time. Just in general with business.
He was also third in line. It was Mark Witten that was second in line. So he was even the next man up anyway.
Right. And it's kind of funny that we're actually on. What were you going to say?
Well, the only thing, when I said a combination of things, don't forget too, they had Terry Crews, kind of wrapped up in marketing and, when CloudGen was bought by Epic.
Maybe that's,
CloudGen was bought by Epic.
Yeah, in January of 18 rather, they were bought by Epic. If I remember correctly, and I may not, I thought that Epic said that CloudGen was still going to finish what they were developing on that game. And then out of nowhere, like 2 or 3 months later, when not Matt Booty, but who was in charge before pre-Matt Booty?
Loftus? No.
Shannon
Loftus.
Shannon Loftus.
I can't remember who said it, but somebody asked about this, and they were like, "Well, we're just going back to the drawing board." So when Epic bought CloudGen, they were still at the beginning going to allow CloudGen to finish this with Microsoft, and then all of a sudden, not only did that not happen, but my understanding is that CloudGen took all that work with them. So Ruffian really did have to kind of start from scratch. It was just and at that point, what are you going to do? And I think there was some of that problem that they were having when, you've canceled Fable Legends, you've canceled Scalebound, you've canceled a few big games, and Scalebound was going to be like their big title.
And you delayed Crackdown. You delayed Crackdown 2 years.
Right. I think I think they had to finish that out of not having the fan base mutiny on them. because I think if they had canceled Crackdown, I think the not just the fan base, but I think the investor base would have lost a whole lot of confidence in the Xbox brand in a time when Phil was taking it over and needing to build it back up. I think that would have been a death blow. Even if the game came out, came out like it did, and there are some of us who are who truly, Fastback, Chris Williams and I, man, we finished that game co-op, and I beat the shit out of that game, and I played Wrecking Zone until there were no people to play Wrecking Zone with, but I know I'm in a minority because the game just died on the vine. It was DOA, but if they had canceled it, I think that would have done. I think that would have done some irreparable harm to the Xbox brand and to Microsoft.
And this is the problem with Microsoft with the last head, where they spent almost a decade neglecting first party. So when Sony screws up with Hello Games and No Man's Sky, and that's a whole fiasco, it's not as bad because they have also their first party balancing it out. So you kind of give them a break. But
But you're 100% right, Shock, because I remember when Crackdown came out. I remember when State of Decay 2 came out. Even though State of Decay was a good game, you sat back and you seen the quality that Sony was delivering, and then you look at the quality that Xbox was delivering on these first party titles, and it was like indie versus some of these AAA games. Xbox at that time couldn't compete, not even close.
And
so
I was just going to say, it's interesting you're bringing that up on how Xbox was doing a lot of indie games at that time. I'm saying that's the way I viewed it. Like some games like State of Decay were like indie comparisons to. Actually, that's why I was wanting to bring it up with you. Our next subject actually has to go with how during that time, the gentleman who's actually responsible for Disintegration, that worked at Bungie and helped create Halo, actually pitched the idea for Disintegration to Phil Spencer, and in his statements actually said at that time Xbox and Activision passed on him because they were more actively looking for indie titles because they were more affordable, and they were not interested in what they called a mid budget title. Basically, it wasn't going to be a low budget or a high budget title. It was kind of like in the middle, and nobody was interested. Do you feel like Xbox has missed the mark on purchasing games like that?
No, because I've played, it's not finished yet, but I've played Disintegration. I was not impressed with it whatsoever.
Now you got to play it where, at E3?
I played at E3, but I also played, they released the, what was it, like tech, not only a tech demo, but like a beta demo. I don't know. They released it to play the demo part of it, if I remember correctly.
Okay, so is Disintegration on anybody's radar in tonight's show?
Never heard of it.
Nah.
Chat can answer that too if they would like.
I totally forgot about that game until you brought it up, honestly.
Okay, so maybe Phil Spencer actually saw the actual truth in that. Was maybe it wasn't going to hit the mark. So because at that time they weren't looking to put out a whole lot of money. Phil Spencer was just getting into that position, and now they've just bought numerous studios since then. They've come out with some new games. You can kind of see that he's trying to right the ship. But I don't know. It's kind of curious on how, it came out that the guy offered Disintegration to Xbox, and now all of a sudden it's like that whole argument, did Xbox pass on another game title?
Just imagine if Microsoft didn't let Bungie leave and Destiny was exclusive when Sony had no games to start the gen. And then they swapped it, and they scooped up BioWare that got bought right when Don took over, who came from EA. So he would have known that whole deal was about to go down anyway. So there's a lot of studios that we lost last gen that they could have easily took under their wing that are no longer with us.
I'd have traded Bungie for BioWare, though, to be honest.
You could have just done both.
Yeah, but
BioWare is only owned by a small, tiny firm that bought up.
But Bungie, you got to remember, Bungie doesn't have the leadership. I mean, all the leadership from Bungie still with Microsoft. Frankie O'Connor is at 343i. I mean, those guys are still there. The problem, and I always make this joke that Bungie got away from Microsoft because it didn't want to go make Halo anymore. So they went independent and they went and made Halo. Because Destiny is...
And they went to another sugar daddy called Activision.
Called Activision. And it's funny because Activision now only has really one game. Yeah, and Activision has one game left in their stable, Call of Duty. I mean, what else? Activision used to be known for so much. Spider-Man.
Well, you can't forget they own Blizzard.
They own, yes, and that's what they're... I think that...
Yeah, they've done nothing with them besides Diablo.
Right, from a console perspective, you have Diablo, but from
they got COD and Blizzard,
right, and
no,
really
they also have Overwatch. Overwatch is actually one of those franchises that's actually getting some. They're getting some foot ground. There's definitely
they made some nice money on Overwatch. To be sure,
absolutely. But I mean, but Activision, and maybe this just is me going back to the 360 days or my days of being on the E3 show floor. When I walked into Activision's booth, I was hit with game franchises and licenses that, no one else had. Superheroes, Activision had id Software, so they had Doom, they had Quake, they had Tony Hawk, they had this giant stable, and now we're, from the console perspective, we're down to Overwatch and Call of Duty. I mean, honestly, I don't know. But real quick, if I can, the thing about Disintegration too, I think Phil's also maybe done with the one-off games. I mean, he grabbed PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, and that was hot fire until Fortnite came along. And I don't know, does anybody still play Battlegrounds?
I dabble in it a little bit.
I know they were still coming out with updates as of last year. I don't know if they're still currently coming out with updates as much as Epic with Fortnite.
I mean, I don't. And now, not only that, you got Bleeding Edge, you got Overwatch, you got all these other games that have taken that mantle, and on top of that, under Battlegrounds went to the PlayStation anyway. I think where Phil is making the right moves is don't go after games, go after the studios making the games. I will tell you the two biggest surprises to me since Phil took over: Ninja Theory and Double Fine. I remember watching. When we did the live reaction shows we did one for both of those. When he announced Ninja Theory, I was stunned. He stunned the entire crowd with that.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? Though I'm gonna. Ninja Theory with the Bleeding Edge, they missed the mark on that one. Everybody gets a free one, but you know what? I thought the Double Fine acquisition was huge because Double Fine they make some fantastic games. The Brutal Legend, stuff like that.
Imagine if he did some banjo, like that'd be sweet.
Yeah, but remember about Ninja Theory and Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge is the stopgap game for them until Hellblade 2, and then after Hellblade 2 comes Project Mara. So and there are people that are playing Bleeding Edge, and Bleeding Edge is in Game Pass. I haven't tried it yet, but I know a lot of people who are playing it who enjoy it. I remember when Bleeding Edge was announced, and I remember the backlash that Ninja Theory got, and at the time, even I was saying, "Hey guys, Hellblade 2 is coming. This is something they wanted to do. Phil's letting them do it while they're developing Hellblade 2." And then we got the Hellblade 2 trailer at the Game Awards, and everybody lost their minds. So, but that's where I think his strength is I think he's trying to pull away from these one-off games and trying to go after getting the studios to actually build those games. So,
did he miss the mark? Did he miss the mark on the opportunity of Disintegration? And no absolutely not, because Yeah, the genre has kind of like never been. I mean, the mix of genres have never been done before. It's a cross between, I would say, Titanfall and an RTS game.
I've heard that.
Because and I played the beta. It was on the Xbox. You can download it. I think you can still download either the demo or the beta, one of those, and actually play it. And I did get a chance to see it at E3. So what they showed me did not impress me. What I played did not impress me. And it wasn't one of these games that's what was going to set the world on fire. And I think that's why they passed on it.
Now, I mean, is that game fully out?
No, it's not.
Obviously, since we're talking about it, I wouldn't be surprised if it came out this year. Because like all of a sudden we're having that article came out like that Xbox kind of missed the mark, and in the theory of the conversation of disintegration, I'm right there with you guys. I don't feel like they missed it. You know, Phil Spencer kind of like what Mike said. You know, he's just tired of those one-off games. You know, he has very talented first-party studios that are more than capable of creating experiences.
Remains to be seen talented at first-party studios. They haven't done anything.
I was excited for Obsidian with the purchase. I was definitely for Ninja Theory. I was excited for Obsidian. Now, one thing to point out, though, if you've noticed a lot of these studio purchases, we're talking Rare, Obsidian, Ninja Theory, we all see the success as games as a service, you know, a game that you can release and evolve over time. And, you know, everybody makes these jokes about one and done games. You know, some of these developers probably feel the same way about one and done. You know, hey, I just put 4 or 5 years into this game. We're going to put it out on launch and it's a done deal. Wash our hands, never touch it again. Some of these developers actually do want to grow and evolve a game into a community, just like Destiny, even Call of Duty. They release a new game every single year, but they have a Call of Duty community. So some of these developers want to obtain that. And I see Xbox is allowing Game Pass to kind of be a way a launch pad for them to create these games as a service that aren't exactly free to play, because you either need to purchase them or have the subscription. So they're at least making money that way. And it's a game they can grow over time, because we all see what they said about Grounded. They haven't fully hatched out the full story for Grounded. It's going to be a game that grows over time, just like Sea of Thieves has, just like Bleeding Edge is going to do.
And State of Decay 2 is growing that way too.
Yeah. So that's why I'm just like, I see a lot of these developers who didn't have the money or the ability to take the gamble and risk creating a title around a games as a service concept. Xbox is now facilitating this, because we've seen the amount of success these other companies, these great big game companies, have had from creating games as a service. Look at Bethesda with Elder Scrolls Online, Epic with Fortnite, and numerous other game developers, EA with all their sports franchises.
You know, this is the problem though. Everybody's trying to catch lightning in a bottle, you know, and what they're doing is they're flooding and absolutely flooding the market with these types of games. And you see it with games like Smite, with the whole battle royale. You know, I don't know what kind of game is or genre is Smite considered.
Smite is a
MOBA.
It's a MOBA.
So you've seen that MOBA craze at the time when Smite came out. Everyone was going with MOBAs, you know, and everybody was releasing MOBAs, and then that died out. And then everybody's now releasing the battle royale games. And now you see kind of that kind of dwindling down. And they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, and they're flooding the market with these games. And it's the same result, because, yeah, they might be building communities on the side, but some of these games, many of these games get left behind in the process.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh yeah, no, exactly. It does feel like the idea of we're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Now the other thing is too, though, let's look at right now is the time to launch games like this, because we're having unfathomable, unprecedented numbers of people online, both using the internet and the Xbox Live, PlayStation Network infrastructures. They've had to dumb down these systems to handle just the flood of people that are all of a sudden playing online. So right now, honestly, is a good time to kind of, I would say, flood the market, because you are having record number of users all across the world on all platforms.
And you can do the same type. You can do the same type of experiences as you get in a gas game, as you could a single player. Because if you think about it, if I was someone that wanted to create a gas single player game, I would create a single player experience and deliver new episode of content, whether it's a new level or something like that. Every other month, you can do something like that, but you haven't really seen it to that extent in first player games. Yeah, you've seen DLC content, with CD Projekt Red. What they did with the Witcher franchise was amazing. You got a lot of value in that. And you're going to see it with their same product with Cyberpunk 2077. But I think it just depends whether or not those single player games have substantial DLC for it to be qualified as a games of service, because you can continue to grow off that too.
Yep.
But maybe it hasn't been done before, but you can do it with that as opposed to something else.
Well, if I might, I think the difference between catching lightning in a bottle with a MOBA and catching that with a games as a service is how you deliver it. The MOBAs. There's really two MOBAs that honestly are let's call them the gold standards. There's Dota 2 and there's League of Legends. Everything else is second tier. So why would you play the second tier games when those exist?
Right.
The Battle Royale games got interesting because the big guns all got involved in it. So PlayerUnknown wasn't the big gun, but he was, was an indie guy that if you want to say he was kind of the father of Battle Royale games, Fortnite really was the one who caught lightning, and everybody's been trying to do that since. And really, the only three that you can even think of right now that are prevalent are
Apex.
I'm sorry, you're right, Apex. So there's four. There's Apex, there's Fortnite, there's Underground, there's Battlegrounds, which Stick Figure in chat is reminding me that the PC side still is a really big base, and now Call of Duty Warzone, but these are all the big guns putting these games out. The games as a service can be huge. They don't have to be the same type of game. Sea of Thieves and State of Decay 2 are two different types of games. But State of Decay 2 right now, at least from what they're saying, and no reason to necessarily doubt them, but State of Decay, even almost a year ago, was up to 5 million players. And that's with a launch that really was underwhelming. Sea of Thieves, I think they had 2 or 3 million people still playing it, and those guys, they're continuing to bring content out the wazoo.
Any kind of number that Xbox brings to the table, I don't believe it. Anything they say.
I believe anything that they say when it comes to user engagement. They're never going to give you sales numbers again. But
they can at least they can do concurrent players. I mean, they don't release real solid information
because Phil Spencer has stated he does not want to fuel the console war, and he does not want to release information that can be used, because you see how the media even twists things that he says.
You see how the
they do it.
On
they
Twitter
do it themselves. They do it themselves. Centurion. When I hear 12 million players, that means nothing to me. Because
I understood, but do you notice? Have you guys noticed that it has been at least a year since anybody has mentioned the word NPD?
Right?
Because as soon as
they mentioned it in November when they found out that actually Xbox passed PlayStation for Black Friday sales.
Right. But I mean, beyond that, you never no more of that. You've got guys running around Twitter that work for MPD and know numbers and stuff, and they're not even doing it. The minute you pulled those sales numbers out of the Twitter sphere, that whole conversation ended, and now we're on to teraflops and other crap. But
floppy flops,
right? Floppy flops. I get, so the only people who really care about the numbers per se are the investors. And if you really want to get into numbers, both Sony and Microsoft put out quarterly reports. You can easily go in and see whether they're up, down in revenue, whether they're up and down in subscriptions. What they care about is engagement. And Sony's starting to do the same thing now. Once they stop talking about numbers, they're starting to talk about engagement and MAU, and the same thing Microsoft is doing, because what they want you to see is not so much how many people bought their game and then threw it on the shelf, but how many people are playing the game. Because the more people play the game, and this is something that I think people don't think about. If you are someone who is on the fence about State of Decay 2 or Sea of Thieves or one of those types of games, Forza Horizon, I'll take that one too, because that's a community type game.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, as a gamer, would you be more inclined to give it a shot if the developer said, 5 million other players are playing it, or if they said, well, we sold 1 million copies and that's all you heard? I honestly believe that part of the marketing that Microsoft and now Sony are trying to get into players' heads is, hey, we got 5 million people playing State of Decay 2. That's got to be for a reason. It can't be because the game sucks. The game's got to be good enough that this many people are consistently playing it. So why don't you come play it? Yeah, and that's what I think.
To kind of feel that, like, let's use like Anthem as an example. If you kind of look at numbers sold versus people playing the game, those are two total opposite numbers, because Anthem was marketed as the Destiny killer, and everybody and their grandmother bought Anthem,
and sorely disappointed.
And then now the user base just completely tanked. And now we're not talking about Anthem's sales numbers. It's actually starting to happen across the board. We're seeing it with Destiny and other games. They're starting to look at active users. They're not looking at copies sold. They're starting to look at how many people are actually actively using the ecosystem.
Right.
Yeah, but give me active users. Don't give me 12 million played. That number means nothing to me at all.
I would like to see the numbers, period, on all games right now, because I'm pretty sure they're like up.
I mean, how do you? I mean, are we talking about active users in a certain time frame? Are we talking about active users from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m.? I mean, you can't. It's hard to parse that number out. I get what you're saying, and I kind of agree with you. But at the same time, I know if 5 million people have been playing, if State of Decay 2 has a 5 million player base, I got a pretty good shot if I want to go in and try to find a game and find some new people to play with and make some new friends. I got a pretty good shot I'm going to find some randos to play with.
Yeah.
In Anthem, there's a pretty good shot I'm just going solo because
I've played Anthem in its current state right now, and it's hard to find players. Absolutely.
Exactly. So I'm more inclined to give State of Decay 2 a shot, because even though I don't know how many concurrent players there are on a Saturday night, I know 5 million players or 5 million people are playing that game at some point. I'm going to find some people to play with. And I think that's what they're pushing.
And now we got Sea of Thieves going to Steam.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I mean, am I correct? Am I thinking of the wrong game?
No. I know you are not. Sea of Thieves is coming to Steam with crossplay.
See that, and that's another thing right there. You're now going to, because there is people that religiously do not want to use the Microsoft Store or the Xbox Store, whatever you want to call it on PC. They don't want to use it, and now Steam is going to open up that gateway for those who actually, prefer Steam.
And if I might, so this is I'm looking at Yahoo Finance. All right, so I'm not even looking at a game site. So I'm looking at a actually this came from Engadget. The first sentence in the news article about Sea of Thieves coming to Steam says Microsoft's buccaneering simulator Sea of Thieves already has 10 million players on Xbox One and Windows 10. That's the first thing they said. Why? Because they want you to know that if you're going to buy this game on Steam, that there are 10 million people out there and you're bound to find some people to play with. And that, again, that is the marketing that we have come to. It is no longer about how many units sold. It's about how many people are playing the game to get you to buy the game because there's going to be people to play with. And I think that's to me, that's, if you step back from Twitter, just Twitter.
What are you talking about, Mike?
What are you talking about? Everything on Twitter is the truth. I have based my whole life off everything that comes through it.
Listen, Mike, don't tell Tim that. He'll have fucking heart palpitations for about a month.
Oh, he's gonna he'll be the one downvote on this show. You know that, right?
Yeah. I told him that Twitter was gonna go bankrupt, and he started hyperventilating on the spot.
I know. I'm staring down, and I'm like, "Geez, I didn't think I was that bad."
But honestly, if you step back and look at it from you have to look into their eyes. The sales wars ended, honestly, a few years ago. It's now about selling people on your software, and that is how you sell people on the softwares, by telling them how many other people have played it.
Great point, Mike. And that was a nice seg, Mike, too. Good job.
Thanks.
Shockley, you got anything to add?
He's not. He's focused on Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Oh man. Alrighty.
So hold on. Hey, Shockley, do me a favor. Sell me on Final Fantasy because I've never played a minute of it.
Thank you, Shockley.
Where's my phone? I need some cricket noises.
I have never played a single Final Fantasy. First off, I grew up a Sega guy, not a Nintendo guy. So
same here, buddy. Same here.
Dreamcast on the wall, brother.
I will say it right now. I bought Final Fantasy X remake that comes with Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X2. The remaster, not remake. Excuse me, remaster. I bought that one because that was actually the first Final Fantasy game I ever really played. I am interested in the Final Fantasy VII remake. I've never played it, but for me, Final Fantasy 15 was the one I've played recently, and that actually got me back into actually enjoying games like that. Final Fantasy, and here's the cool part: Final Fantasy 15 is in Game Pass, and if you're a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you actually have access to the Royale edition of that game. And I mean, there you go. Spend the entire quarantine playing Final Fantasy 15.
That was PC only, though, right?
No, it's on Xbox.
Okay.
But you can literally dump over 100 hours in that game easy without blinking an eye.
I am lying. I have one Final Fantasy game in my entire. That was the 360 game. That one that you had to pay $9.99 a month for. That's the only one I've got.
That was 13.
The only one I've got, and I played it for a month, and then I put it back on the shelf, and that was it. I was like, this is no Fantasy Star.
When it came to the PlayStation 2, I bought the external hard drive just to play that. I spent a lot of money on that game, and for it to it was great. It was a great experience at that time. It made it feel like the old Fantasy Star days on the Dreamcast.
I was hoping that it would be more like EverQuest Online Adventures, which was my big PS2 game, and it wasn't. And I kind of just gave it up. I was like, if I'm going to pay, because I was still playing. I think I was still playing Online Adventures at the time, and I was like, I'm not paying for two games, and I'm way more invested in EverQuest. So.
For me, my online crack right now is Elder Scrolls Online.
Elder Scrolls.
I always wanted to get into that, and I never did.
Same here.
Dude, I have logged a massive amount of time. I mean, like insane amounts of time.
So listen,
Cameron Unlimited is still in Game Pass. I don't have an excuse.
Well, that's the thing. Like, everybody needs to understand, if you download that game, for starters, you're only going to have access to the base game. All the DLCs are going to be locked. And that's where you either get their version. It's kind of funny. They have a subscription called ESO Plus. There's a lot of perks to it. One of the perks is that you get access to the DLC, but I actually own it all just because I don't want to ever have to lose my DLC because I don't pay for my subscription. But that game has consumed a lot of time.
So if me and Mike jump on that, will you teach us how to play and invest countless hours again for noobs?
I don't have countless hours.
No, I will. And you don't need to. And that's the only thing. Actually, it'll be accelerated because you're dealing with me. I have a high up there character. I can give you stuff to help you level quicker. Not to mention me and a friend of mine. You've met him, Stained Zombie. We've built a guild house that has access to numerous resources to kind of like make things a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Nice.
Yeah, we've kind of built a light in that. Oh, he's back.
My bad. I was on a call in between.
You were challenged to convince Mike here why he should play Final Fantasy.
I think I just started playing. I've never finished a Final Fantasy game in my life. I started Final Fantasy, the original, on my Switch to get ready for this because I knew I had to at least get past Midgar, which isn't that far, to at least to enjoy like everybody else, kind of like, oh, okay, here's what this world looks like now. But if you like any action game, action is solid. It's really good.
I'll reveal a secret. I played Final Fantasy X wrong, and I couldn't beat the final battle. I had to give up.
All right, so is 15 a good game?
Final Fantasy 15, I enjoyed it, but to absolutely understand Final Fantasy 15, I have not personally done it, but there is also a movie. Like it was like like the story went across platforms.
Was that so? That wasn't the movie, that Advent Rising movie, was it?
No.
Okay.
No. It's tough.
7. But Final Fantasy 7's story, I think that's because if you go back and play the original game, it's just a bunch of menus. It's not like amazing gameplay, but it's the story and the characters. So, but I think you'll definitely like it. The action.
Now, do I need to play another Final Fantasy before playing 15 to get anything about it?
No.
They're all
No.
like anthology, basically.
And now one thing I liked about Final Fantasy 15 is they got away from turn-based fighting.
That's
and it's actually more open based. Now there is like you can pause fighting or whatever and actually kind of get characters to do certain things if necessary. But for the most part, it was like open fighting. It wasn't turn-based strategy.
And funny story, Mike, none of the Final Fantasy games relate to each other other than Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, Final Fantasy X and X2
or 13 and 13-2,
Yeah.
Okay.
And 13-2, yeah.
But yeah, no, Final Fantasy 15, awesome game, man. It's actually a very gorgeous game. It's actually Xbox One X enhanced, and I mean, I enjoyed playing it.
Have you seen the 13? Because 13 and 13-2 are also enhanced, and it almost looks like a current gen game, even though it's a 360 game.
Are they in Game Pass too? Because I don't see them.
They will be eventually.
I know, eventually.
So Final Fantasy X looks amazing. That's also enhanced, and so is 13 on the 360.
I'm sure 11's coming, or not 11, but 12. Zodiac Age.
I guarantee you, as Square Enix starts putting most of these Final Fantasy games in Game Pass, I wouldn't be surprised if a couple popped up Xbox enhanced.
Yeah, I know 13 and 13-2 are. I bought those on 360 and for peanuts, and they look amazing on the Xbox One X right now.
So I'm letting time get away from us because podcasting is awesome. We'll get to the last subject here, which actually kind of like we're all talking about, Microsoft doing things differently, companies making successful games. Let's talk about the issues going on with Gearbox and Randy Pitchford. And apparently their structure of paying their employees is a little different than other gaming developers. To kind of give some insight, if you don't know, at Gearbox, they actually pay their employees below average salaries for being in the industry. And to make up for this, they are given quarterly bonuses that are based on the success of the games that are being developed. And we all know Borderlands 3 in its success was actually record-setting. Within 1 week of its release, from the sources I've read, it actually generated made the franchise into $1 billion franchise. This is one of two. So that makes Borderlands the second franchise ever in the history of that company to actually achieve this status. And so all the employees were excited. There was rumors coming out from a couple employees that bonuses of over $100,000 were supposed to go to some employees. And Gearbox has even touted that in the past, employees have been able to buy houses on the bonuses that they give out. And Gearbox even stated that since they've started this program, they have given out over $100 million in bonuses and royalties to employees of Gearbox. But when you bring up Borderlands 3, this isn't going to happen. Randy Pitchford actually came out and said bonuses are actually going to be considerably less because apparently the game went over budget. The game itself finished at around $95 million, and with the DLC that was supposed to go with it, came out to a total of $140 million.
Yep.
And in the contract that they have with Take-Two, the publisher, Take-Two, the publisher, must be paid back in full before any royalties will be paid out. And so as a result of this, they are not going to receive the bonuses that they thought.
You took my thunder, man. I was going to talk about the in the contract, even though I didn't read it. But so it had an insane marketing budget for one. The development budget went over budget, as you just said, but it was in their contract. And in this case, employees got pissed off airing dirty laundry, and that's what happened.
Now, part of them going over budget was switching from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4. That was to upgrade the game itself.
Yep. But I mean, these people know this going in their jobs, and it's not like, all of a sudden these contracts are, they spring up out of nowhere. So nobody forced them to take the job at a lower salary. So stop crying. And
right.
It's just one of those things where, and again, if it's in their contract, that's what they have to comply by. So it's just disgruntled employees.
No, yeah, and to put it out there, Randy Pitchford in the meeting did tell employees, even though with all the stuff going down, that with everything going down with this pandemic, he still said, if you're not happy with how we do things here, you are free to go work somewhere else.
Right. Yep. And I'm sure he's really, you heard in the past that they're real. Wow, he's got the bouncer logo going on there. Shockingly. But I'm sure, they treat their employees right. I think this was probably a one-off because you've never heard any.
No. Well, you've heard Randy. There's been stuff about Randy Pitchford for years, though. So don't forget that there has been allegations, of all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So, but I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I was going to say. But you do bring up a good point as far as Randy, going off has a track record of doing those kinds of things. But
oh yeah, there is definitely a lot of controversy that actually surrounds Randy Pitchford and kind of the way he does things. Because even Borderlands 3 in its production, there was a lot of rumors and stuff because wasn't he also at some kind of spat with the original voice of Claptrap and actors not getting paid and all this other stuff?
Well, that's the That's what I was referring to. Is that guy alleged that Pitchford assaulted him. I mean, it was pretty weird. Now, you guys ever heard of the site Glassdoor?
Yes.
So
Yep, I use that to get some interviews done.
Yeah, well, when you get a chance, look at Glassdoor for Gearbox. There's only like 30 reviews there, but it's pretty mixed. Some people love it, some people hate
pretty
it.
Mixed.
It's a shit show. That's what you're telling me.
Well, some of the stuff I read and watched, apparently, the lawyer that was at Gearbox from 2011 to 2018 accused Randy Pitchford of some pretty crazy stuff, like taking somewhere around $12 million or something like that. And not to mention, there was also an incident where Randy Pitchford, I guess, lost a USB drive in a medieval times restaurant that not only contained sensitive information involving Gearbox, but also questionable adult-oriented stuff. So there is a lot of stuff that surrounds Randy Pitchford. So that's where it's just like,
on a thumb drive.
That is definitely. But yeah, like even that was
at medieval times of all places.
Medieval times. Has anybody seen my porn USB drive?
Right. Guy when you see it.
I'll tell you one thing.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
It's probably why
there were no USB drives during medieval times. Therefore, there are no USB drives at medieval times. Can I give you a refill on your Pepsi,
dude? That would if with that controversy, you would definitely be one of those people that if you actually had to go into Randy Pitchford's office and do anything, you'd be one of those people who'd be like, all right, I'm going to get in, get out. I'm not going to look around, touch anything, or look at anything else.
Yeah.
There's been some questionable stuff.
You know what the real question is? Whoever picked up that USB drive, I really hope they washed their ass.
It's so sticky.
I hope they sanitize that motherfucker.
Oh my God. But think about this too. Well, here's the problem. The problem I have is how they got it, because they run to the media.
Yeah, they go to Kotaku.
Media. Right, they run to the media. They run to the worst media tattletale in the world.
Yeah.
Jason Schreier saw those smoke signals.
Oh, he's like hits on my site, and so. I could go an hour on that asshole. So we'll just move on. But people have to see, Borderlands was a great success for them, but Gearbox employees signed up for this knowing that this is the same company that put out Alien Colonel Marines and Battleborn. So, you have to understand what you're getting into when you sign up to go work for Randy.
And not only that, you would have to know as an employee that you're already over budget.
Right.
Because Take-Two came out and said this game cost way too much to produce.
Right.
Don't let somebody else gamble with your money.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah. And look, they, Borderlands 2, the one thing Borderlands 3 does not have, which is part of the problem too. I know it came out of the gate hot, but it didn't have legs.
Oh no, they've even Take-Two has come out and actually apparently they're scaling back their expectations now for Borderlands 3 because it's actually not. It's kind of like it hit the ground running, but all of a sudden it's kind of limping along at this point because of some of the ups and downs of the game. I've had some serious bugs. I mean, I have literally had Borderlands 3 full on crash restart my Xbox console 3 or 4 times.
And don't get me wrong, by coming out of the gate hot, I think the number that they said they shipped was 5 million, and that's pretty damn good. But you are not hearing that game like you are hearing other games. You're hearing more about
Destiny status.
Right. You're right. You're hearing more about Destiny and Apex Legends, which is a free game, than you're hearing about Borderlands 3. And it was one of the most anticipated games of 2019 easily. And this is what you sign up for. And I guarantee you that there isn't going to be a game that Gearbox puts out that's going to come close in that. I mean, I don't think. And let me just double check and make sure. Yeah, Godfall is not going to light the world on fire. I'm sorry to tell people.
What do you,
Oh,
Mike?
dude,
What do
as
you
soon as
mean? What do you mean? PS5, Sony guys.
As soon
been
as I
talking all
saw
about
that the first game on PS5 exclusive is going to be made by Gearbox, and it's going to be pretty much a an online multiplayer style shooter.
Exactly.
With the problems that I saw with Borderlands 3, I was like, oh my god, that right there, that's a gamble.
I'm
Mike,
telling
you
you right now.
just broke Sony fans' hearts across the world,
Dude,
Mike.
and I mean no disrespect to Sony, but I am telling you right now, Gearbox very likely pitched this to both, and Phil probably said, I'm good. They could have it. If you notice, nobody is really hyping Godfall as the big exclusive. The big thing that I'm talking to people about right now, I mean, it's bad enough that I have friends of mine who, honest to goodness, believe that The Last of Us 2's delay is so that it could come out on the PS5. I mean, that's how much people are thinking about Godfall.
Yeah.
And I would
So-
say the same thing if it was an Xbox One Series X game. This game does. The trailer was like, okay, cool, next. I mean, it does nothing for me.
Now, Gearbox was also claiming a result. These bonus results were also because they're opening a new studio. They've been expanding with new employees. So with all this dirty laundry that's being aired out and all the problems it's causing, is it conceivable to say that Gearbox might change their salary structure going forward as the company is now expanding bigger than they originally started?
It depends. I mean, it just depends. I mean, who knows?
Why are you expanding when you can't pay your employees what you owe them?
Yeah, that's true.
They have people working
I
on.
mean, it's their fault for
so-
signing it, but they're also kind of shitty for. Like,
Well,
throwing
they
budgets,
should have
so-
probably been more black and white with, if they had it in the contract that Take-Two had to be fully repaid for all this, then
I'm sure it was. I mean, you don't go into those
well,
contracts.
I don't see every employee that works at Gearbox standing in the conference room while they're signing the contract with Take-Two. You know, I'm pretty sure there's like some major representatives of Gearbox that are responsible for all that. And that's where maybe the employees should have asked for a copy of the contract to see what was exactly promised.
They're required by law to give it to them.
Well, they're to give it to them, but now whether or not,
Not
because
negotiate it.
it's kind of like receiving your pay stub. You know, you receive it every single week, but do you actually honestly look at it every single week?
We
It's like
fixed
the
the glitch.
NFL. Like the Players Association collectively bargained with the owners, but the players didn't decide it. Like the ones some punter didn't decide what he was getting.
The honest
in that
truth is,
agreement.
if this was so bad, the situation at Gearbox, then there would be enough people that would have walked out of Gearbox that that Godfall wouldn't be in development right now. But the fact of the matter is that I am sure. So there was another article. Somebody came out, and I was trying to find it while we were talking. Like one of the graphic designers on Borderlands 3, or one of the developers, working on the game, came out publicly and said, Randy came out and he got everybody together, and it wasn't like he just stiffed everybody. He explained what was going on, and he was very open about this bonus issue. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, we're talking as though Randy has one of those curly mustaches that he does this and goes with, and I don't think that's the case. He might be a schmuck, but I also don't think he's been hiding anything from his employees. Right. So, there have been no mass walkouts. Nobody is, six people, snuck behind his back to go talk to Schreier. I mean, I'm not I don't know. I think this is going to blow over pretty quick. This is a
Yeah.
nice media story, and Randy is to be fair, Randy's a good punching bag. He's been for years, but I think that works in his favor, because then it's going to be, it's just another Randy Pitchford thing, and they're going to move on.
Yeah.
So any other final thoughts on that, Shockley?
No.
Nope.
No.
What
but
level
it
are
was
you
funny
at
with
right now
the
in
coalition.
Final Fantasy?
Shit, I can't tell you. I think I see where it says level up, but I forgot to see like what level I'm at. I think I'm probably like close to level 10. I think.
Shockley, are you driving right now? It
Yeah,
sounds
I'm
like you're
driving.
driving. Tell me,
I think I
Shockley,
searched
tell me
my
the truth,
phone.
Shockley.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's got an Xbox hooked up in the
No, I
car,
told you
driving
that,
down the
bro.
road, podcasting, playing Xbox, driving. All right, so
Yeah, it was
I
funny
guess
that one guy was leaving the coalition though, and people were trying to spin that as like, "Oh my God, the coalition!"
Oh.
See, look,
Oh, right, Rod.
what's happening."
Rod's but that's
No, the other guy. There was a small guy that was ahead of the, I think the multiplayer part. I forget his name on Twitter.
Oh.
But he said he was leaving because of personal reasons. He's taking like time. He's taking a leave of absence or sabbatical or whatever.
Well,
dude, with all those things going on right now, I'd say anybody could leave for personal reasons right now. People at my
It's
work,
like I won't be returning to
Here we go.
coalition. I'm like, all right.
people at my work left for personal reasons. They just wanted to be home with their family during this whole event, and they had the money to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. I found what I was looking for real quick. So Gearbox game director Maxime Babin took to LinkedIn to defend Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford. Basically saying, elaborated that the studio in fact received royalty checks and that more are on the way. So it's very possible. Let's see. Following news of the royalty checks breaking, the term Randy Pitchford began trending on Twitter, with many criticizing the CEO. In his post, Babin cites Pitchford giving up 30% of Gearbox to the employees. So he's given up a piece of the company to the employees. So you got six people that snuck over to Schreier, but you've got a game director that's being very vocal and public about defending him. So take that as you will.
Like I said, I just think it's a case of someone just airing dirty laundry, and
Which I have a problem with that. I have a problem with where you air it.
yeah.
So
Yep.
Oh, I've learned
Absolutely.
if you're going to the individual that we all know, you say you go on about him an hour. I've learned to take his articles with a grain of salt, because I know he's digging hard for some of the people that end up in these articles.
Mhm.
he blocked me a while ago because I called him out on his BS good journalists can't be objective, or can't be objective about things.
I remember that.
There's a fine line between objective and manipulative.
And he's manipulative he goes at, he's like, he thinks he's the Aaron Brockovich of the game world.
I honestly want to say there's no Pulitzer prizes or whatever awards they give out in gaming journalism. There really isn't.
No, there really is.
It's funny when he said Xbox is like way behind, and it's like, wait, we still haven't seen the PS5, but now we've seen the Xbox Series X. So who's behind? Yeah.
So, anyways, we're gonna let
Sorry,
all the people. No, you're all good. This is I don't want to be the guy that was responsible for creating the TXR Snooze Fest. So I'm gonna let all these people get on with their.
So Jeremy didn't warn you before I came on the show that usually every show that I end up on,
Like
somehow
3 or
goes
4
3
hours.
Oh, I've been on some 3-hour marathons myself outside of E3. If you're doing E3 like a live watch or something, I can understand doing the whole event and you're there for multiple hours. There is sometimes like you're just chatting for like 3 or 4 hours. You're like, oh my gosh, this went on
Talking
forever.
about nothing.
Talking about nothing. Yep.
Nothing.
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 Hey, I will say it's a success. We stayed on gaming and gaming topics the entire show. We didn't go off the rails and start going all different kinds of stuff.
Exactly.
So, anyways, we'll let everybody get on with their Easter Sunday. Well, outside of Easter, I know not everybody celebrates Easter, but it's still a time for families to get close with each other and kind of appreciate the loved ones around each other with everything going on. But without further ado, we'll start these outros. We'll start with our guest because I accidentally skipped him at the beginning of the show because I'm a gracious host like that. So, Mike, where can we find you and what you've been playing lately?
Hey, well, first, man, great job, Century. If this was your first time hosting, man,
Right?
I'm telling that was top notch, man. Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So,
Yes, it is my first time ever.
yeah, and I want to thank you guys for having me on. It's TXR, great friends of Next Level Gaming, and I know we've shared. One of the things. Jeremy knows this. I have an unbelievable amount of respect for TXR, and number one, what you guys do. I was so happy when TXR was coming back. Southbound's good guy, Tim's a good guy. Invader, him and I talk a lot. But there was a thing where you and us both had Tommy Tallarico in the same week, and you guys held your announcement until after he was on our show, even though that was like 4 days notice. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell that is something that I and my crew over at NLG will never forget, because that was an absolutely huge thing. So you guys, I mean, are absolutely our gaming brethren, and good, good gamers and Xbox guys at that. I love watching you guys at FanFest and stuff like that. And keep doing what you're doing here, because this was a lot of fun to be on.
It would have been in poor taste for me to not do that. As far as
that was unbelievably huge. It really was. And you guys, and by the way, I loved that interview you guys did with him. I mean, you guys got some great. If you watch both shows, you got all kinds of great exclusive announcements on both, and we've tried to let everybody know once they're done watching ours, come watch yours, because I mean he was just a great guest for you guys too, and it was really the professionalism was off the charts. So you guys, I've loved the guests that you guys are getting, and this is a great show, and I love listening to it, and when I can sneak into the chat, I do. So for us. We are the channel that we have is the original Next Level Gaming. You can find us on YouTube. If you actually put in Next Level Gaming in the search, I believe we're the first or second one there. And our show comes on Thursday nights at 9:30. And you can find me on Twitter at Stinger NLG. As also on Xbox as Stinger NLG, and on PlayStation, for what little I do on that, as the original NLG. So I think that's everywhere you can find. Yeah, I think that's everywhere you can find me.
All righty. And now, Downer, what you been playing? And well, actually, wait a minute, Mike, what have you been playing? You didn't answer that. I just realized that.
It's all right. What have I been playing? So. Phantasy Star Online 2. that's taken up a good bit of my time, because that just took me back to my youth. And I've been doing some retro gaming. So recently picked up Wipeout and Road Rash for the Sega Saturn. So I've been putting some
nice.
those. And just doing. I've found myself digging back into my Saturn and Dreamcast library a little more than I've anything else right now.
Sure to change the batteries on your memory cards.
Yeah. Oh, so it's funny you mentioned that, because a month ago did exactly that. I went to Home Depot and I got a bunch of those, I think it's 32 batteries, and replaced every freaking one of them in my VMUs.
Don't forget to change that battery in that Sega Saturn, buddy.
Oh man,
those are pains in the butts.
Well, the Saturn itself has an internal battery?
Yeah.
That's how it kept time. So, hey, Chris is in the chat. It came a little late, but that's all right.
Do
All
you have
right.
a FPGA for that Saturn?
No, but I got the Hyperkin cable, which does a
Okay.
phenomenal job, actually. It's one of the few HDMI cables that actually, I mean, it looks legit, and it's got a switch on it that can switch back and forth between 4x3 and 16x9.
Yeah, that one guy, I forget his name, Professor Abrasive, he's making a kind of a card that you slide in the back of where that battery is for the
Right.
Saturn. So hopefully that's coming out soon. But
I mean, if you really wanted to, you could also do SCART. I mean, if you wanted to go that route, you could do.
Well, that'll allow you to run them off of SD cards instead of the discs. Since the game.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Expensive.
The one that I really want is the Mega, whatever they call it, the Mega thing that you could plug into a Genesis that puts your Sega CDs and stuff
Oh,
on.
Mega SD. Yeah. I need
Yes,
that one.
that's what I really
For
want.
the Sega set or for the Sega CD. Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
that
when
I
did
really want.
game consoles turn into car modifications?
Dude, so have you guys know the Polymega? Sorry to bring you off course a little
No,
bit, but
I know what that is.
so the Polymega is supposed to be this kind of all-in-one retro console. It's got a base unit that has that plays Sega CD, Sega Saturn, PlayStation 1, and Neo Geo CD, and then you can buy expansion modules that sit on it that do the cartridges. I was all in on one of that until the base unit price came out. It's $400. That's too rich for my blood.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, to be fair though, if you go to a retro shop, a Genesis and Sega CD will cost you close.
Yep.
So, I just don't have that kind of money. My money's on the Amico at the end of the year.
Yep.
I actually thought about getting one of those just to have around the house for me and my wife.
I'm a founder. I got the founder's edition.
Yeah, it's really awesome that that's actually taking off for him. You know, he's being as successful as he because he's putting some of those numbers out there on Twitter.
I'm happy for him. I really am. I'm happy for the brand. I grew. That was the one I got. I had that over the 2600. Still do. I still got a plethora of games and an Intellivision too. The Amigo is, of all the consoles, that's the one that I've got pre-ordered. I don't even think, because I've got an X that I love, I don't even think I'm in on the Series X at launch.
Not for
Sorry,
me.
all right,
I want my obelisk on my entertainment center.
Yes.
But keeping the outros going, Downer, where can we find you and what you've been playing?
So I do want to take this time, to thank Mike for coming on the show. You did a tremendous job, Mike. Really happy I asked you. But just keep doing what you're doing, man. I know your team at NLG is very passionate about gaming. You know, sometimes I wish these guys on here were equally as passionate.
We need to do some. We need to do some crossovers. We got to get you guys. We got to get some of you guys on our show. I talked to Invader about this. I really wish had E3 gone on as planned. Him and I were talking about the prospect of doing the big Microsoft conference live show with you guys.
Yeah, you know what?
I'm sure they'll have like a direct.
I was going to say that could still be on. Hopefully, Invader's listening. If not, one of us will talk to him. But we all know that Microsoft is doing digital events until 2021. They're not going to be. They would be fools just to go radio silent.
No, they're going to, and they're going to have something in June. We just don't know what it is yet.
So, Mike, what platform do you use for your podcast?
OBS.
So, how many
and Skype? OBS and Skype.
Okay, so
you're
using
max
Skype.
You can have on your show.
It's what I can fit. I've had
okay.
I mean, I've had 8.
So let's talk after to see what we can do about maybe we can do a crossover or something like that.
Okay.
I think
I've done them where we've done them on both. So, OBS can multi-stream, so I can if there's like if StreamYard had a key I could put into OBS,
Yeah.
you guys, we could have them on both channels. So
Okay.
we'll
figure it out when the time comes. But I did want to say, your channel's come a long way. I think you do a tremendous job, and you've grown so much. You guys do great interviews. And that's what TXR was known for in the past. Now you guys are known for that. So
you guys have some great guests. I love listening to the folks you have on. So
so tell your team, just keep at it and keep doing a good job. Like yourself, we come from a retro background, old school gaming, and I was a big Sega fan. You guys don't know this, but I used to import a lot of my Sega stuff. So back in the days, I was a big a fan of importing games like that didn't come out on the Sega Saturn. That games like Radiant Silvergun.
I have that.
Yeah, and I had Burning Rangers first when it came out. And I just Grandia when it came out on the Sega Saturn. I imported everything. I also had my Dreamcast 6 months before everybody else when I imported it. Paid $600 for it at the time.
Yep.
And so
and worth every penny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a little bummed when Sega went under, and it affects me to this day. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
My version of Power Stone is an import.
Yeah. So thanks, Mike.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Honestly,
you didn't tell us where we could find you and what you've been playing.
I said I wanted to take that time to.
Oh. All right.
What have you been playing?
Yeah.
So I just passed Ori 2 and Resident Evil 3. Just passed both of those. Now I'm looking at my 1,000-game library, deciding what I want to play next. So I'm not sure yet. I was trying to get into Control. I think I was going to play that next. So I think that's a good game.
You haven't played Control?
No, I've played it, but I haven't played it. I got to sit down and play it through.
Oh, dude, I don't want to say I 100%ed it. I don't got all the achievements, but I mean, I went all the way with that game as far as I could.
It's a fantastic game. I knew once I popped it in and I played it for 5 minutes that it was going to be a special game.
But all right. Don't want to tell people where you can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Xbox Live at Downer Space J.
All right. Shockley, do you got a chance to put down Final Fantasy VII for a second and tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Shock Nero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. But yeah, I've been obviously playing Final Fantasy VII Remake recently. Downloaded Resident Evil 3 on Steam, and running through that game looks pretty sick. Probably would have got an Xbox, but I didn't know they were going to patch in the performance, but to fix the whole performance issue that was going on. But yeah, that's what I've been playing so far.
Right on.
I mean, it looks nice. It looks nice in 60K. I'd rather have it at 4K. It drops the resolution a little bit, but I'm not a big fan of 60 FPS. I'm just not. I like my games looking nice and crisp. So
you prefer resolution over frame rate?
Yeah, all the time. Absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
I was playing Metro on PC and it dropped below 60 and it just felt like awful.
Yeah, like you can. That is the first time. I think you're one of the first people I have come across that actually would rather have the resolution. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but you're one of the first people that I've actually heard that would take resolution over frame rate.
Yeah, I'm a reso guy.
Now,
okay,
I will defend Downer on that because I actually do feel that way about 70% of the way. It wasn't until I did my video with Destiny 2 where I compared 30 frames a second to 60 frames a second because I used the 30 frames off my Xbox and I used the 60 off of my PC here. And now the thing is, though, my PC monitor is not 4K. But I mean, I could see the detail that was in the trees and stuff like that because the trees move more fluidly. I could see the argument on how the environment is more natural feeling at 60 frames a second because you don't have that jaggedness in the movement of everything. But for me, I will say it right now, I am a sucker for eye candy. It's a whole reason why Journey to the Savage Planet was on my radar in the first place. Just watching the trailers for that game, you're like, holy cow, somebody really made an eye-popping game. And that definitely, in situations like that, I'm kind of like right there with Downer.
Yeah, there's something to be seen playing a title like God of War. I know it's not true 4K, but it's in higher resolution on your PS4 Pro. Even at 30 frames per second, with the UHD and the HDR fully, it just looks great. So yeah,
fair, and even on the base console, so I that's fair. That's fair.
Third person isn't as bad, but if you're playing 30 FPS on a first person shooter, you really start to feel it.
I will definitely say with Rage 2 is where I really kind of preferred 60 frames a second. I liked the fluid movement of Rage 2.
Yeah. And Mike, you can attest to this, but man, in the Sega Saturn days, we hit 15 frames per second, 20 frames per second on some of these Saturn games, bro.
Yeah.
Come on.
You gotta
fast. Be. Yeah. But let me tell you, man, Virtua Fighter 2 was locked and gorgeous locked 60 frames. The Dreamcast was where that frame rate was at.
Yeah.
There were so many, I mean, there were very few games that did not hit that 60. Yeah.
Well, alrighty. Huge shout out to the awesome Invader Gaming who could not be here tonight. He had some family stuff going on, along with Southbound, Megatron, and Tim Dog. Huge shout out to them as well, all having family stuff going on. But a huge thank you to everybody here, especially you, Mike, for taking time out on Easter Sunday. Just on short notice, like literally, hey, the show starts in 5 minutes. Can you get here? So really,
hey, my pleasure. We Jews don't have much to do tonight, so.
Oh man, but yeah, definitely thank you for being here. So I'm Centurion 1307. You can always find me on YouTube, Twitter, and Xbox Live at Centurion 1307. I also do other shows, but tonight I won't hype another show because I am hosting the TXR podcast. Thanks to Invader for trusting me with that responsibility. If you would like to tune into more episodes of the TXR podcast, you can also find us on YouTube at the TXR podcast and also on Twitter. Thank you everybody for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Play on, gamers.